Good evening, everyone. This is the Thursday, February 19th, 2026 regular Glencoe Village Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order now, and let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Here.
Trustee Mielopoulos.
Here.
Trustee Underdunk.
Here.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Here.
Trustee Rubin.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
And President Rowan.
Here. We are live streaming this meeting on the Village's website tonight, and the video recording will be available on the Village's YouTube channel. First item of business is consideration of minutes. We've circulated minutes for the regular board meeting on January 15th, 2026, the committee of the whole meeting on January 15th, 2026, and the closed session for December 11th, 2025. The minutes have been circulated. Are there any comments? And if not, is there a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Right. Before we get to our next item, which is public comment, in deference to our public safety officers who are here, and we need to get them on the streets to make sure Glencoe stays safe, and I also don't want to put them through the rest of this meeting, I want to change the order so that we can swear in a new public safety officer, which we're happy to do, Sebastian Strozik. So with that, let's start with the swearing in. Okay.
This thing on? Okay. Yeah, I get to tell some lies about you for a little bit first before you come up. President Rowan, members of the board, Village Manager Crowley, thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you also for changing the order. I know it's appreciated by everyone, and just in case there's a job, like is mentioned, we want to make sure they can participate. So as I said, good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our newest Glencoe Public Safety Officer, Sebastian Strozik. So if we can hold, Adam, if we can hold this picture up here, and I'll let you know when to switch to the next. Thank you. Sebastian, by way of introduction, Sebastian is 27 years old and joins us after nearly 3 years with the Schaumburg Police Department as a lateral hire. Prior to that, he served as a park ambassador in Highland Park, managing parking operations around the lakefront, which is very topical for us as of late. Found that out today. And previously as an auxiliary police officer with the Rosemont Public Safety Department. That experience makes him uniquely qualified. In fact, he is the only member of our department who has worked for the only 2 public safety departments in the state of Illinois, which I thought was particularly interesting. Sebastian grew up in Des Plaines after his family moved there from Chicago's Jefferson Park neighborhood. His parents, Eva and Wesley, to my left, your right, came to the United States from Poland, from a small farming town called Strugowa. I hope I got that correct. High school sweethearts, they married in 1996 and built a life centered on hard work, faith, and family. We are honored to have them here tonight, along with Sebastian's older brother, Bart, to my right, a project manager in an architectural firm. Sebastian is also joined by his fiancée, Monica, an occupational therapist with the Wheeling School District. Sebastian and Monica's story actually began years ago when he and his brother worked as lifeguards for the Mount Prospect Park District. Monica was their boss at the time. And, as Sebastian will tell you, she was not exactly his biggest fan in those early years, as I was told. Fortunately, persistence paid off. Sebastian graduated from Elk Grove High School before earning his associate's degree, focusing on criminal justice from Harper College. He then went on to complete his bachelor's degree in business administration at Illinois State University, home of the Redbirds. While in school, he spent nearly 8 years working as a lifeguard and an aquatics manager at Mount Prospect, Palatine, and Harper College. Though, interestingly enough, he will admit in private company and now in front of everybody on YouTube, live streaming, that he is not a fan of open bodies of water. Sebastian learned about the opportunities in Glencoe from his longtime friend and former Schaumburg police officer, Robert Giatris, as you may recall from our previous swearing-in ceremonies, is highlighted as a black swan, and he rescued one from within the confines of our village. The two grew up across the street from one another in Des Plaines and later served together in Schaumburg as police officers. We are now fortunate to welcome both of them to our department as lateral hires. If you would, Adam, if you go to the next picture. So here's some pictures of Sebastian early on. If you note the picture on the left, it's either he's graduating from high school or he's going to Hogwarts to be a wizard. I'm not sure which. And on the right, rocking the sleeveless pink tee, he's holding a baby crocodile, is that? Is it alligator? Okay. So he brings also unique experiences to our village once again. So he brings not only that experience, but professionalism, dedication, and a strong sense of community. He's eager to learn or to earn his way in the Fire Academy and hopes to participate on any of the myriad of special team positions that we offer as soon as he is eligible. We are proud to welcome him to Glencoe and confident he will serve our residents with integrity and commitment. So now that you've heard a bit about him, I'd like to invite Sebastian and his family to come forward for the administering of oath of office. Village Manager Phil Crowley will administer the oath, immediately followed by an opportunity for photographs. For those of you watching the show from home, we'll get right back into regular business immediately after. Sebastian, welcome to Glencoe.
So if you would, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sebastian Scherzik,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the ordinances of the Village of Glencoe,
and ordinances of the Village of Glencoe,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the position of Public Safety Officer
the duties of the position of Public Safety Officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
That's the hardest it's ever going to be. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Everyone just stand up and do.
Okay, everyone, don't leave just yet. I was making a list. I was making a list as the chief was talking. First of all, Sebastian, I hope you don't leave, like, at all, because the chief just put that picture up on the screen of you. Now it's gone. Look at that. That was quick. It was the wizard. Before you walk out, I was making a list of things. So, Desplaines, you worked for a park district. You don't like large bodies of water. You're first generation, grew up with parents who immigrated to the United States. Those are all things that you and I have in common, which I think is just kind of a fascinating thing to learn while I'm sitting up here. But I just want to welcome you warmly to the Glencoe family. It is, I hope you will find very soon, a place that you will enjoy your work, that you will find a community that supports and embraces you, that your teammates that you will work with every day are going to do the same, and you will for them. This is a place that we are very proud of the caliber and quality of people who want to work for the Village of Glencoe. We're thrilled to welcome you to this team, and so happy that your family got to be here this evening as well, and we got to see them. Thank you all for taking the time, and especially thank you for sharing Sebastian with us. We are very grateful for that. Thank you.
Let me say one other thing that I always say whenever we bring in a new public safety officer. We in Glencoe, we are really proud of our public safety department. We think you are fabulous. One of the things we like about you, and so I mention it every time, is in Glencoe, the public safety officer is your friend. We are not confused about that, and we know the officers aren't confused either. So welcome. We're glad you're here, despite the fact that you're from Desplaines. we've had some,
Ouch. Tell ya.
questionable experiences.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. The next item on our agenda is public comment.
Judy Wright.
No. Oops. The next item on our agenda is public comment. This is where we allow members of the public to address the village board on a topic that's within our purview and jurisdiction, but not listed on another location on the agenda. If you want to talk about a member that is listed, an item that is listed on the agenda, we'll ask you to wait until the agenda item is called, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak then. If your matter is on the consent agenda and you want to talk about it, let us know in advance, and we'll take it off the consent agenda so you can talk about it. Anyone who wants to speak should fill out a written speaker form, which is located at the back of the room here, and give it to the village manager. That's the guy from Displays. This time, public comment is intended as an opportunity for you to make comments to the village board. We'll listen to what you have to say, but not ordinarily engage with you on that issue. If appropriate, we may ask the village manager or other village staff to respond to questions or issues at a later time. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes, and to be fair to all, we're going to strictly enforce this rule. Per our established policy, we're going to limit all public comments to a total of 30 minutes. We ask that all public comments be respectful, civil, and non-repetitive, and we ask that all members of the audience refrain from applauding or making any other comments during or after any other speaker. Finally, please be sure to speak directly into the microphone so that everyone here in the room and also on our YouTube channel can hear you. With that, are there any public comments not on agenda items? Apparently not. Okay, let's get to the next issue, the next item on our agenda, which is report of committees. And the first committee is the Committee of the Whole. I'll do that report. We had our Committee of the Whole at 5:30 this evening, and what we talked about is the process by which we're going to try to choose, we hope in the next month, the restaurant vendor for our new golf club clubhouse. That was what we talked about, and we, like I said, we hope that we're going to be able to make a decision and choose someone by next month. The next item on the agenda, next report, is the Finance Committee, and I'll ask Trustee Rubin to report on that.
Thank you. At Tuesday's Finance Committee meeting, the committee discussed the monthly financial reports for the month of January. And in a nutshell, revenues and expenditures were pretty much as expected, with some of our revenue sources actually exceeding our budgeted targets and prior year receipts. We discussed the property tax receipts for the second installment of 2025. As you know, the bills went out late, the money was coming in late. When we were getting it from Cook County was further delayed, and the good news is we're now up to about 98% of what we anticipated has been, in fact, received. This all relates to last year, and all the monies that came in during the first 60 days after the end of the year will actually ultimately show up back on the books for 2025, so that when people are looking at things and trying to compare apples to apples, it will look much more normal. The funds will be allocated to the right time of the right time period. We also talked about the construction of the golf clubhouse, which now you can see from Green Bay Road as you drive by, with some of the removal of the buckthorn, and progress on that schedule and some changes. We also discussed them separately, that and some changes in the schedule for our capital improvements projects this year. We discussed our 2025 audit, which we are in the middle of. It is ongoing and will continue, and the final audit report is expected to be presented to the village board in June. Lastly, the village's actuary, Foster & Foster, presented a report regarding their analysis of the impacts of certain proposed changes to the Tier 2 pension benefits, which are being considered by the state of Illinois. So this has to do with the fact that quite some years ago, when the current so-called Tier 1 pension benefits, which were then just called pension benefits, because we only had one tier, were found to be, frankly, ultimately bankrupting the state. I mean, they're very, very generous, and they're great, but we couldn't keep doing it for everyone going forward. It was simply too expensive, and what the legislature did is it created a separate set of pension benefits, which is now called Tier 2, and everyone that started work after a certain date went into Tier 2. So everybody knew that, and that's been in place for years. There is now a proposal down in Springfield to increase those Tier 2 benefits to bring them closer to Tier 1 benefits. So we had our actuary go through and look at the numbers and what would that cost us if those benefits were to become law. And it was clear that the impact to our finances would be rather dramatic. We've shared this report with the Northwest Municipal Conference as part of their efforts to collect data from all the municipalities so it can be reviewed and discussed with our state legislators, not in theory, but with actual numbers. And that is our report.
Thanks for that report on our finances. The next report is the Plan Commission, and the Village Board's representative on the Plan Commission is Trustee Mihalopoulos. Georgia.
Thank you, President Rowan. At our January 28th meeting, the Plan Commission approved the exterior appearance review for a new sushi restaurant known as RDK Sushi at 317 Park Avenue. The approved changes include an updated facade and new signage. This restaurant has also received permits for an interior renovation, which is currently in progress. We also began exterior appearance review for the proposed expansion of the Glencoe Public Library at 320 Park. Commissioners reviewed the project and gave feedback to the library, asking for a little more information about the proposed addition scale in relation to nearby buildings, for just a few additional renderings showing the addition's interaction with Village Court and Green Bay Road, and some suggested changes to the design of the large windows on both the east and west side facades. The library team will present the updated plans at the February 25th Plan Commission meeting. We also continued our discussion for the in-progress plan development ordinance and provided direction to the planning team. This process will continue at the March Plan Commission meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for that report. The next report is the Golf Advisory Committee, and Trustee Hallwax is the Village Board representative on the Golf Committee.
I was going to say to start, if you haven't seen the new structure, please make it a point to do so, not just from Green Bay Road, but give it a drive. It's incredible how it's going. The clubhouse project experienced some lost work days in January due to the sub-zero temperatures, but the contractors have taken advantage of the warm weather this week with over 25 people on site, and work is progressing quickly. All the roof trusses have been set, as well as perimeter walls, and are completing the wood sheathing. Plumbing for the kitchen and 2 individual bathrooms is 80% complete, and the slabs for the basement and first floor will be poured once weather allows. Friends of the Glencoe Golf Club is doing well and continues to receive donations. The campaign has raised over $2 million in gifts and pledges, and hopes to have an uptick in donations once the new clubhouse, the outside design is more finalized. And the next golf advisory meeting is this coming Monday, February 23rd.
Thanks for that report. The next report is the Sustainability Task Force, and Trustee Rosenblatt is our representative on that.
Thanks, President Rowan. The Sustainability Task Force met on January 27th, received an update on the Sustainability Action Plan, and discussed the promotion of the Open House community event, which took place on February 4th. The group heard updates from staff on the new household battery and paint disposal options, the gas-powered leaf blower ordinance waiver for December, and, which we mentioned a few times, the Wesley Road, Green Bay Avenue buckthorn removal project. There's also discussed the Terra Cycle Box update, which can be used for household items that are not accepted curbside. Budget review and coordination with the Park District for a small paper shredding station is going to be placed in the take-off center. This task force reviewed options for the 10th anniversary commemorative tree and reviewed the event schedule and goals for 2026. The task force also reviewed its communications plan and developed contact topics for February and March social media posts focused on sustainability education. Lastly, the task force expressed interest in learning more about the tree preservation ordinance, which will be discussed in greater detail at future meetings. The next task force meeting is February 24th.
Thanks for that report. Our next report is the Glencoe Council for Inclusion and Community, and Trustee Scott is our representative on that.
Thank you, President Rowan. The Glencoe Council for Inclusion and Community met on February 2nd, and despite the fact that a quorum was not present, the council was convened to discuss upcoming community initiatives. Council members shared feedback on the recent Good in the Neighborhood initiatives, showcasing Glencoe and Glencoe-adjacent businesses that are giving back to the community. The council also discussed their engagement with District 35, during the upcoming Family Belonging event, which is located at Central School and will take place at 5:30 p.m. on March 18th. Finally, the council continued conversations with Glencoe Family Service and District 35 regarding a speaker series to be focused on families and developing a sense of belonging within the community. The next regularly scheduled meeting will take place on Monday, March 2nd.
Thanks for that report. The next two reports are the Preservation Commission and the Tree Commission. Trustee Onderdunk is our representative on both, so I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you very much. At the February 3rd Preservation Commission meeting, the Commission conducted a public hearing for a certificate of appropriateness request for 80 Estate Lane. After discussion with the applicant, the item was continued to the March meeting for further consideration. The Commission also continued its discussion of potential preservation financial incentives, how these incentives could be structured, and the broader policy implications of the incentives. In addition, the Council is planning to work with the library on a program for preservation. We're looking very seriously at a community forum for preservation and a formal presentation by someone who's an expert in the area of historic preservation. Let's see, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 3rd. Shall I continue? Okay. In addition, I serve as the Tree Commissioner, Chairman of the Tree Commission for the village. They held their first meeting of 2026 on February 9th. The group discussed the 5-acre buckthorn removal this week, that began last week, actually, at the golf course, and also also discussed the tree nursery in collaboration with the Park District. In addition, the Commission reviewed major updates to the tree ordinance associated by and approved as part of the Arboretum grant from Morton Arboretum. This is on tonight's agenda. We began planning for Arbor Day celebrations, and that will be scheduled now for the first Monday in April. Ongoing discussions will continue with the developer for the Forest Edge subdivision regarding the landscaping plans, and this will require a special meeting for review of the materials submitted by the developer, and that, I believe, will be held on February 23rd. That concludes my report.
Thanks for both of those reports. That concludes the reports of committees. The next item on the agenda is reports of officers, and the first part of that is the report of our village manager from Des Plaines, Village Manager Corrali.
but transplanted to Glencoe. Transplanted and hopefully flourishing because of it. Thank you, President Rowan. Good evening, everyone. Just a few items on my report this evening, and I'm only going to say anything about one of them. The first is related to some of the points that Trustee Onderdonk had mentioned in his report relative to the Preservation Commission. As the board is aware, the Commission has been working on a series of recommendations to update our preservation ordinances, our historic preservation ordinances. A series of those recommendations will be presented to the board at the Committee of the Whole in March, so we just wanted to put that out there, as I know there are individuals in the community who are eager to engage on that subject. So that, as I said, will be coming to the Committee of the Whole on March 19th. The next two items I'm going to hand off to Public Works Director Monica Sarna, who's going to provide a brief overview of both buckthorn removal, which has been mentioned a couple times, as well as a brief update on our sustainability action plan. Monica.
All right, thank you. If you could go to the next slide. So I'm happy to hear that many of you mentioned the buckthorn removal in your commission updates. It did begin about 2 weeks ago, and so the first picture there, you can see they cleared a small area by the intersection of Wesley and Holfelder. This was their staging area. They headed straight north and began the clearing of the 5 acres that was part of the agreement with the Forest Preserve of Cook County as part of our amended agreement as part of the clubhouse project. So we were excited to see that this work was beginning this year. It's been something that we've been talking about for a while, and I think is going to be an improvement for that area. The second picture you can see there is the area to the north that's looking northbound or northwestbound. You can see the significant amount of vegetation that is being cleared through this process. They have strategically been clearing inwards to outwards, and they are hand clearing the edges near the sidewalks. They don't want any debris flying into the roadway or damaging any nearby pedestrians, as the machine that they are using does grind up all of that buckthorn and leave it in place. The last bit that they'll be clearing is that south part all the way to Wesley, just being mindful of, again, taking greater care on that perimeter as they are removing it. The contractor who's doing the work has been contracted through the Forest Preserve. It's Tallgrass Restorations, and they have been wonderful to work with and accommodating and keeping us informed of their progress. So there may be some additional work. There's a small section of buckthorn that remains in between Mary Mix McDonald and the limits that they've cleared as part of our agreement, and so we'll be waiting for an update from them on how that may proceed. Any questions on the buckthorn? I will just say in general, we've been keeping the residents and nearby neighbors informed. It is definitely a change in scenery as you drive along Green Bay Road. I've definitely noticed that traffic has slowed in the mornings as people are looking at that new view. And I will say you can see the new clubhouse as you drive along Green Bay Road. But overall, we have not received too many complaints from the neighbors, if at all. The next update I have is in regards to the Sustainability Action Plan. Just want to give you an update where we're at overall. The part of the Sustainability Action Plan, we have a planning team who has been scheduled to meet 4 times. We're halfway through that process. The first meeting was an overview of what we're doing. The second meeting, we looked at and evaluated some potential goals for to be incorporated into the Sustainability Action Plan. And then our third meeting, which is scheduled at the beginning of March, we'll be looking at those modified goals based on the feedback we provided and looking at actionable items to make sure that those goals can happen. And then the last, 4th and final meeting is scheduled for May, and we'll be reviewing a draft Sustainability Action Plan as a team. So that group is comprised of residents, it's comprised of business owners, leaders in local organizations, but also village staff. Another thing to note is we just closed the survey, and the survey results are on our website. We had over 173 residents respond, which is actually, by our consultant's book, a very great number. So we're pleased with the amount of responses that we've had. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the key themes along the responses that we received. So support for municipal action and leadership, reducing our energy, reducing our waste, and then also protecting our resources that we have. And it also kind of touched on, how our residents are feeling about climate change. I would say overall, I think 42% of our residents are very concerned, and many of them feel like they are already feeling the impacts of climate change. So it's just something to help us keep in mind as we're developing and establishing the Sustainability Action Plan. Any questions with that?
Thanks, Monica. Just one last item. You may notice that we are down one staff member who is normally present for these meetings. Deputy Village Manager, CFO Nikki Larson is not here because thankfully she is at home with her new son. Dominic Martin Larson was born on February 13th. And everyone is doing great. Just want to express our congratulations to Nikki and her husband, Chris, and their other little boy, Brad, who I hear is taking to being a big brother very, very well. He's very excited, very sweet, only a little bit jealous. So that sounds a lot like me. He's acting as would be expected. But seriously, to Nikki, because I bet she's watching right now, because I told her not to. So that means she definitely will. We are so happy for you and your family, and stay home and enjoy these moments because they are fleeting. But we are very well served with the team that remains, many of whom are here tonight, who are supporting the operations of the village in Nikki's absence. So again, congratulations to Nikki. And that concludes my report.
Thanks for that report. Next item is the village president's report. That's me. And the first thing I want to get to is consideration of a proclamation declaring March 2026 Women's History Month. We've circulated that proclamation. Unless there are comments, is there a motion to issue the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. It's Women's History Month in Glencoe. Next item on the President's report is a resolution to honor Commissioner Diane Schwartzbach for her 18 years of service on the Glencoe Preservation Commission. 18, but we're supposed to have term limits, so 18 years is very serious. We are grateful. We've circulated the resolution. And unless there are comments, is there a motion to pass the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And so the resolution goes forward. There are two other things I want to mention. We don't usually talk about TV here, but I'm going to make an exception. On Sunday night, there was a 60 Minutes report, and it started off, it was about 3 80-year-olds. And it turned out that those 3 80-year-olds were all born to women at the end of April 1945, who were at Auschwitz. And being pregnant at Auschwitz was, like everything there, a capital offense, so they somehow were able to conceal their situation. And as the war was closing and the Russians closed in on Auschwitz, the Germans sent prisoners off to another place, Mauthausen, where they're supposed to be killed. And these women held on. All 3 of these women had babies at the end of April as World War II was ending and as the guards were fleeing. It was one of those moving, semi-positive Holocaust stories that 60 Minutes ran. And they had interviews with these 3 there were two women and a man. Each of them were pretty much exactly 80 years old because they were born in the end of April 1945. And, you know, I thought it was quite a powerful story. And then I started getting emails. One of the children, who's 80, his last name is Olsky. And it turns out that the proprietor of Olsky's Jewelers, who've been there my entire life, so I remember this when I was a kid in the 1950s, Mrs. Olsky was one of those women. And her son also worked in the store at Olsky's Jewelers, which you'll still find on Park Avenue. So, you know, there were people in town who knew about Mrs. Olsky's story. I was clueless, but I know now, and the village knows now. And I just want to say, we've talked to the Historical Society, and we're looking at what to do, because we are going to recognize this, you know, clearly extraordinary woman who was, you know, here for, and they're still here, you know, forever. So I want, you know, I don't usually talk about TV, but that's worth an exception. One last item, and this is a sad note. Bob Young, who served the village as a volunteer for many years, recently passed away. Bob began his service to the village in May 2017 when he was appointed to what was then known as the Glencoe Community Relations Forum. And in that role, Bob participated in training sessions with the village board. He worked with community organizations like the Botanic Garden, like Writers Theater, like the Glencoe Public Library. And he supported ongoing dialogue with our public safety department to strengthen the community's understanding of what our public safety officers do. Bob advised the village board when it updated the human relations section of the village code, and when the village formally established the Glencoe Council for Inclusion and Community. Of course, when we created the Council for Inclusion and Community, we made Bob one of its inaugural members. And Bob stayed with the GCIC, which is how we refer to it, until 2024, when he had to step aside due to his health. It was my personal pleasure to have had the opportunity to have worked with Bob. Bob Young was passionate about social justice and deeply believed in the promise of America and the possibility of a better world. On behalf of the village board, I want to convey to Bob's wife, Jean, and to his children and grandchildren our condolences on Bob's passing, and to say how grateful we are for all of his efforts on behalf of the village. And that concludes the village president's report. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that have been published online for the community and reviewed by the board members either individually or together as part of our committee of the whole. We don't think they warrant further public discussion. There is one issue I want to mention. Item C has a typo. When we issued the agenda to the board, it said we were approving the December 2025 early check register. That's typo. It's supposed to be January 2026. All the backup materials were correct, just the title had the typo. We've fixed it. Our village attorney here has told us, by me confessing, that's all we have to do to make this legal. So I confess, we've fixed it, and with that correction, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We need a roll call for this, I believe.
We do. Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Underdonk.
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The consent agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is regular business. And the first item is consideration of a resolution approving change order number 4 for task order 3 and 4 for additional services rendered with FGM Architects for the design of the Glencoe Golf Clubhouse project for a final cost not to exceed $212,683.50. And I'll ask our Public Works Director, Monica Sarna, to present. Monica.
All right. Trustees and our village president, thank you. So this change order can be classified into 5 main segments, and I wanted to go over those each. The first 2 are what we would call owner-initiated changes, and this is for the design of those changes. The first one, I think you can recall, the eastern entrance revision. We started working on that back in April of 2025. If you can remember, back in June of 2025, there was a village board discussion regarding this eastern entrance revision. Couple iterations of that design and continuing coordination with the neighbors resulted in a design change. That design was approved by the village in September of 2025, and it's ultimately been implemented into the IFC set, which is the issue for construction drawing set. That design change still needs to receive approval through Cook County. Where we were at in the permitting process with Cook County, we did not want to throw a curveball at them. We wanted to continue through and obtain our permit, and so we decided to delay submitting that revision until that full permit had been approved. The next one is the croquet court and short game area revision. This design started all the way back in April of 2024. However, as we progressed through the design, there were some changes that were made, particularly the inclusion of an official croquet court, which, if I remember correctly, is something by like 100 by 100 dimension court. So incorporating that into the clubhouse footprint took some design modifications, and again, that was included in the final issue for construction set, and those changes will still need to go through Cook County for final review and permitting with the revision that we'll be submitting. The next item is permit delays. So just as a reminder, this project did require permitting approval through several different authorities. We had to go through Cook County, the Forest Preserve of Cook County, and also the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. Each of those review cycles took much longer than anticipated, and I'll go into more detail into that in the next slide. The next item is the early start support. So as these permits were delayed and we weren't receiving approval to move forward with construction, we looked for early start approvals. So we received a series of early starts for our foundation, for our structural steel, for our site civil, and then ultimately our rough MEP. All of those early starts allowed us to continue with construction before our final permit was approved and issued at the end of 2025. To support all those early starts, our construction manager had requested some early start packages. So you can see those for the structural foundation and steel packages. There were multiple civil packages, and then ultimately the time that had passed from the issue for bid drawings to the issue for construction, there were enough changes to support the need for an issue for construction drawing set to be issued within, once we had received that final permit approval. The last segment here is allocation for future costs. So what we're looking at is the cost to submit the first 2 revisions I talked about back to Cook County. So we are planning to submit the final issue for construction drawings back to Cook County to get approval on those revisions. We are hoping that we generously estimated 3 rounds since it's just some slight changes, but ultimately the way that their revision process works, we do need to resubmit the entire plan set for review in that revision process. So that is just funding allocated to help us progress through that needed permitting approval. So I just kind of wanted to walk you through the permitting delays that we saw. These are the main permits that we had to achieve or had to attain for this project. So for the first one in Cook County, we submitted that back in February of 2025 and did not receive approval until October. Our actual date that we received the permit wasn't until we paid for the permit, which was in December, but the approval was issued back in October, and that was 5 total review cycles overall that required coordination with our architects and their design team. And the next is MWRD review. We submitted that in March and received approval in August, and that had 6 total review cycles. And then this is a unique review process to our project. The Forest Preserve of Cook County, through our IGA, requested to review our plans and grant approval. And so that had 4 total review cycles. We first sent them the plans back in February, and we did not receive final approval from them until September. And then there are 2 other permits, the ILR 10 and the IEPA permit. Those were just 1 standard review cycles, but it's part of the overall permitting process. Any questions on that? All right.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax,
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos,
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt,
Yes.
Trustee Rubin,
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion carries. The change order for architects is approved. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a resolution approving change order number 2 with W.B. Olson for issue for construction, winter conditions allowance, and other changes for the construction of Glencoe Golf Clubhouse project for a final not to exceed cost of $392,701. And again, I'll ask our Public Works Director, Monica Sarner, to present.
Thank you. All right, so this change order is also in relation to the clubhouse. This is with our construction manager, W.B. Olson. And similar, I'm trying to break out the items that are included in this change order. So the first one is the issue for construction changes. We just talked about the amount of time that had passed from when we created the issue for bid drawings back in February of 2025 until the issue for construction drawings, which were finalized in October of 2025. Some of those changes within those plans, or the difference between those 2 plans, are those owner-initiated requests that we talked about. So the large ones being the eastern entrance revision and the croquet court and short game area. But there have been some other minor changes that we've worked through as we've progressed through design and construction. Some of that is as minor as adding power to the hostess stand, something that was not picked up when we worked through design. Another chunk of these changes comes from the permitting review process. So as we got comments from Cook County and the Forest Preserve and MWRD, there were changes that were made to the drawings. So the issue for bid set that we used to attain that guaranteed maximum price with W.B. Olson did not reflect those changes, and those fit within the definition of what we would call a change order. I also wanted to note that there were some, included in this, there were some value engineering changes. So if you had looked through the line items, you would see there were some credits, although minor, and then there are also, the cost for the changes. So I just wanted to note why you may see some numbers crediting money back. It's because we had made changes to reduce the cost of the project overall. The next item that is included in this change order is for winter conditions. So the original schedule for the clubhouse, we had anticipated having the building enclosed by the time we hit the winter season, and we did not meet that milestone. So it is not, winter conditions are not within our original contract, and so it does qualify as a change order. Those items include labor for clearing snow, labor and equipment needed for temporary heat. We've had to de-thaw the basement as it's been built. Additional time, if we've rented equipment and we've lost days due to the cold weather, that equipment may still be on site, and we need to account for the cost of that. So this winter conditions is an allowance to get us through the rest of the season, to make sure that we are able to address those costs as needed as they come up. The last item here is a small portion overall, but I did want to note that some of these items are allowances. So if you see a nice clean number with lots of zeros, it is because it is an estimate. So it's known changes that we just haven't obtained final pricing on. I thought it would be more clean to include that in this change order, to not come back to the village board for minor change orders going forward. The total value of that overall, I think, is only about $13,000. But it's just changes that are known, that we know will require some additional costs. Any questions on this? I do want to make one point of clarification with the WBO change order. When I was talking through FGMAs, obviously we talked a lot about the schedule impacts and the schedule delays. We are anticipating, or we are in discussions of another change order with WBO when it comes to schedule delays. That is not part of this change order. We're still kind of working out how that makes sense and what that discussion looks like overall. So just wanted to clarify that this is really, the drawing changes, the physical changes, and the winter conditions. It's not looking at overall schedule delays.
Thanks for that. Are there any comments from the board?
Just a quick question. Thank you,
Trustee
Monica. For the,
Mithalopoulos.
thank you. When do we expect to get or obtain final permitting?
So we have
I-
final approval, but it doesn't include all of the changes that I talked about with the eastern driveway. We will be submitting for revision within the next week or so.
Okay.
And it's just going to vary based on the amount of time, number of submissions that we'll need to get through. The good news is that most of these changes we've gone through with the inspectors. We've shown them the plans. They are okay with moving forward as field changes, but it's still required that we need to go through the permitting process overall. So we will be resubmitting to Cook County, and we will also be resubmitting to MWRD, but it's not that we'll be able to continue forward with construction.
Yeah, that was my question. Is there a point where we'll end up being too far ahead? We have to stop.
That is not my understanding. I'm going to look to my team. I'm getting nods from the corner, so I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a guess as to the size and scope of the next change order coming, and what dollar amount, timing it might be?
I think I'm not going to throw a number out there because I don't know. I think that it is definitely going to be 6 figures, but I just don't know exactly where that will fall. It won't be 7.
Can I just make one recommendation?
Mhm.
And it's probably already being handled. In my current role, I do also deal with permitting and a lot of back and forth between, municipality with different permitting agencies. Sometimes some of this back and forth is just due to just a little bit of miscommunication or, missing a comment, which could just send us back to the beginning. So I just want to recommend, if we don't already do it, maybe placing another set of eyes on some of these comments and then disposition of comments back so that we kind of skip some of this dead time that can happen. Just a recommendation for staff.
Yes, and I think that's great. I do hope that there's been some lessons learned as we went through the process the first time. So as we're going through the revision process this time, right, we are a little bit ahead of maybe on some of the things that held us back. But I would say just in general, this review time that we saw with Cook County was just not precedented. Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit at our finance committee meeting last Tuesday. And the only thing I want to say is that, we we like and have confidence in our contractor, but, you know, sometimes there are disagreements. I understand that there are still some outstanding issues, possibly going in both directions. And I just want to say, in my behalf, and I think the board, keep looking, that, you know, to the extent that that the money is not all going one way, that we're watching that, and you can make sure our contractors know that we're watching that. Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve the W.B. Olson change order?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Underdunk.
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries. Change order is approved. So I expect to see smiling at the back of the room. The next item on the agenda is consideration of an ordinance granting special use permits for the expansion of a non-conforming ground floor use and relief from off-street parking requirements for the Glencoe Public Library at 320 Park Avenue. I note that we have some visitors from the library. Welcome. And I'll ask our Development Services Director, Taylor Baxter, to present. Taylor.
Thank you, President Rowan and members of the board. Under consideration tonight are two special use permit requests from the Glencoe Public Library. These are both tied to the proposed expansion project of the library. The proposal is for a 4,000 square foot expansion, and this triggers the need for two SUPs. The first is to expand a non-conforming use on the ground floor in the B1 zoning district. As you likely recall, last year the zoning code was updated to require, or to was amended to only allow restaurant and retail uses on the ground floor in the B1 zoning district. To expand a use that is not restaurant or retail in that district, you need a special use permit. The second is to allow this expansion to proceed without complying with off-street parking requirements. This expansion of 4,000 square feet triggers the need for 8 new off-street parking spaces. And as part of this project, the library is also requesting to remove 4 required off-street parking spaces. So they're requesting total relief for 12 off-street parking spaces. I would mention, as I did a couple months ago, a new state law that goes into effect on June 1st will essentially eliminate our ability to enforce any off-street parking requirements in this part of town. So that second SUP on June 1st essentially becomes moot. However, parking impact will still remain a valid consideration for SUP applications, and that would apply to the first request also. Amongst the criteria for SUP review in the zoning code is parking impacts. So you'll see in a few minutes there are some recommended conditions of approval tied to parking. Those can be applied even to the first SUP if the second SUP is no longer needed. This is a 2-step process. The first step is a zoning commission public hearing. This took place over the course of 2 months at the end of last year. The zoning commission held that public hearing and makes a recommendation to the village board, which we'll go over in a moment. And we are on step 2 this evening, village board making a final decision on this SUP request. As Trustee Mealopoulos mentioned earlier, exterior appearance review is also needed for this project. Anytime you have a project that changes the appearance of a building in a business district and that requires a building permit, exterior appearance review is required. That's handled in a 1-step review by the Plan Commission. That review started in January, and it will continue next week with the Plan Commission. The expansion of a non-conforming use, the first of the 2 SUPs needed. The Zoning Commission talked about this in some detail. They considered a lot of the review criteria that are found in the zoning code. Some of the things that were under consideration, could this potentially be a restaurant or retail space? Unlikely. Does it meet the comprehensive plan and downtown plan goals? These plans call for supporting the library, enhancing and improving Wyman Green. The removal of significant features such as trees. There is some tree removal proposed, but it is small trees or invasive trees, non-native invasive trees that can be removed. Interference with the surrounding neighborhood and adverse impact. This was really, the Zoning Commission really focused on parking concerns here. which we'll talk a bit more in a moment. That was really at the core of their discussion and the recommended conditions that are found in the ordinance. Also in the zoning code, SUPs call for consideration of public benefit. Does the proposed use or expansion of the use have a public benefit? There was a unanimous agreement that the library has a public benefit. And could this use be located elsewhere that is not an SUP? Unanimously, the zoning commission decided that that's the best place for the library. The parking reduction SUP. As I mentioned before, 8 new spaces are required by code. Also, 4 required spaces being removed. Again, regardless of the non-conforming the expansion of the non-conforming use includes criteria related to parking. So you can consider parking-related conditions of approval, even as the off-street parking requirements in the zoning code will essentially go away on June 1st. Some slides. These are very slightly different from what's in your packet based on comments from the Zoning Commission and some revisions that were provided this week. But essentially, for the purposes of the SUPs, these are the same footprint, same basic design. As you can see, expansion of the library on the southeast and southwest corners towards Wyman Greed, expanding the footprint on what is currently the parking lot to the southwest, and open space to the southeast. Here's a view looking to the north from Wyman Green. You can see the 3 east, central, and west parts of this proposed expansion. The view looking northward, looking south from Village Court. The Zoning Commission, it's not a recommended condition of approval, but part of their consideration and one of their recommendations to the Village Board is to continue to consider the interaction of this building with Village Court as we go through the final stages of the streetscape study. That was area of much discussion, and deliberation. There are no specific conditions, again, attached to this, but they did request that as you, in the coming months, look over the draft and final versions of that streetscape study, that you keep in mind kind of the intensification of the library use here on Village Court and how it might interact with it. You can see the expanded, the west expansion towards the back there. That is the community room. 100 and I believe 40-something seat community room. That's the same side of the building looking northward. Straight on shot from the south from Village Court. You can see that community room to the left. Central space is the same height as the existing library building in the middle, and then the addition to the right. This is the view from the Green Bay side, the east side of the building. And again, this is all going through extensive review for appearance purposes from the Plan Commission right now. There's been some detailed conversations about the scale of these additions, the materials. The windows have undergone some changes based on those Plan Commission comments, and that review will continue next week. For comparison, Village Hall, the height and scale, Village Hall is on the left there. And you can see the library building on the right across Wyman Green. Again, in relation to the conditions of approval, all the conditions of approval that are recommended by the Zoning Commission and that are in their resolution recommending approval of these SUPs to the Village Board, which are also included in the ordinance, which is under consideration this evening, all are tied to mitigating potential impacts of parking. As I mentioned earlier, there's a larger community gathering room than is currently existing in the library, which could increase some parking pressure when they have larger events there. And the Zoning Commission recommended conditions of approval to help encourage visitors to the library to use the parking lots to the east of Green Bay Road, or to walk or bike or take transit as they can. This is a depiction which would tie into our ongoing streetscape study, which is going to recommend enhancement of the crossing of Green Bay Road to encourage people to be able to attend library events and not park in the core of downtown at peak hours. The zoning commission recommendation, they approved a resolution, which is included in your packet, recommending approval of both SUPs with conditions. Under consideration, they looked at the Writers Theater conditions of approval from about a decade ago, which had similar concerns about parking. The commission determined that the proposed project would be similar to Writers Theater, but would not have the same parking impact that Writers Theater did. And so they had a smaller list of recommended conditions related to parking. The first was to work with Writers Theater to minimize large capacity event conflicts, not to schedule large events at the library at the same time that there are large events at Writers Theater. And second, to conduct diligent efforts through promotions, signage, maps, emails to library patrons, et cetera, to encourage those visitors to use the commuter lots on the east side of Green Bay Road, or to access events by means of transportation other than driving. So tonight, in front of you is an ordinance which would approve both of these SUPs. So your motion would be to adopt or deny, if you don't feel it's appropriate, adopt or deny the attached ordinance approving both of these special use permits. And of course, you may amend that ordinance as you determine to be appropriate, including any conditions of approval. Representatives from the library are here tonight if you have any questions for them or if you have any questions for me. And I'll turn it back over to the board.
Thanks for that presentation. Let me say for myself, I've gone to a lot of the library meetings. I've been following this project. We've now sent this special use permit to the zoning commission. They've reviewed it. They've sent it back, and they've basically said, you know, you should approve this. I think we should approve it. I would note that the village is going to be working on what to do about parking uptown. We're continuing to work on that. One of the things we're looking at is trying to ease the ability to create a better connection from sort of uptown Glencoe, west of Green Bay, to the east side. That's something we want to do. In any event, I don't feel like it's the library's problem. The library has an elected board, elected by the same folks that chose us, and there's going to be a referendum on their plan, and their plan looks okay to me, and I think we should get out of the way. So I think we should approve this special use, the two special use permits. That's my thought. Other trustees? Is there a motion to approve the two special use permits?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Malopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk.
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The special use permits are approved. There's a referendum coming up. Best of luck. Okay. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a right-of-way license agreement with Level 3 Communications LLC, and this is in connection with underground wiring that they are planning on doing in the village. They've appeared before us previously. And I'll ask our Public Works Director, Monica Sarna, to present.
All right, thank you. So this is essentially the same right-of-way license agreement that we saw for Easy Fiber, although it has been modified. In the process in which we modified it, we worked with Alrod Freeman, who coordinated responses not only on Glencoe's behalf, but on behalf of many of our neighbors, including Lake Buff, Kenilworth, Winnetka, and Wilmette. What we thought is this joint approach would strengthen our leveraging power, but it would also simplify the process for everyone. And so what we did is we collaborated many times as a group between the village engineers to talk about some of the points of discussion as we were working to finalize a modified agreement. One of the main purposes of modifying this agreement from the type of agreement you saw with Easy Fiber was to eliminate any references to services. So Level 3, Lumen Corporation, will not be providing any services within Glencoe's limits. They are pass-through fiber installation, and so as the original license agreement was written, there had been many references to residential services, business services, and services to the municipality. And so all of those references were removed, but there were also some other areas within that license where we wanted to tailor approach that was more appropriate for this type of construction. And so what we have is this for approval. Like I said, essentially the same license, but just slightly modified. Any questions?
I just have a comment. I just want to say thank you to staff and to Elrod Friedman for, working with the village on this not very complicated project, but I think it was very beneficial that we worked, among with all the neighboring communities to help strengthen and protect us, and also simplify it for them as well. So just want to say thank you. We have, many protections in place. It's always a good thing when we're kind of strong together, with our neighbors, so not one town's doing something different. It just makes, I think, the whole process a lot easier. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we definitely benefited from the collaboration with our neighbors, so yes.
And I just want to add, if I may, President Rowan, that your comments, trustee, from the last Public Works contract that we reviewed that involved underground work were very valuable as we reviewed this.
Let me say, there was a time 45 years ago when our current village attorney and I were working on cable TV for Glencoe for the first time, and at that time, the village had some power to do something. In the intervening 45 years, our ability to do stuff has been dramatically limited by superseding laws
And competition.
and we recognize that it's not just our game anymore, and so I appreciate that the approach that staff has taken, working with other villages and working with probably all the villages are represented by the same geniuses at Elrod Friedman, that this is as well as we can do. So with that, unless there are further comments, is there a motion to approve the right-of-way license?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax?
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos?
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt?
Yes.
Trustee Rubin?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
The motion carries. The license is approved. That's the last item on our agenda. If there isn't any other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.